Hello out there. This is Stacey Sanderson, and I am here today, as always, coming out of my comfort zone a little bit to share the ideas, wisdom, observation, guidance around certainly mental health, personal empowerment, but of course about narcissism. And I'd been thinking about making a post around the idea of what is personality pathology versus what is something that is much darker going on. So, some people listening to this may be confused by it or may flat out disagree with me, and that's fine, totally fine. Let me know either way. But it has been my experience when working with a small portion of women whom I see in the practice that the husband or partner, male partner, that they have left has something more going on than what is answered by the understood criteria of narcissism, sociopathy, and psychopathy. And I'm sure there is a question, are there women like this? Yes, I definitely think there are. I have met maybe two. I've heard about maybe three or four when working with men in the practice. So this is not exclusive to men. We can think of narcissism along the lines, of course, as the dark triad: narcissism, sociopathy, Machiavellianism. I can never say that word, and I never really need to. And narcissism itself lives on a spectrum, as we all know. So what that means is there is an intensity or lack of intensity of the traits. And far along that spectrum, we have sociopathy and psychopathy. I think that many narcissists, if they meet the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, when under extreme stress or threat, can exhibit sociopathy. I would maybe not go so far as to say psychopathy. Sociopathy really refers to people who have zero regard for the rules of society, for the norms of society. It's a neurobiological phenomenon. That part of their brain is not developed, much in the same way that empathy and self-awareness are developed in narcissism. And psychopathy is a little bit different because it it includes being frankly delusional, having distorted thoughts and ideas far beyond what we would see in narcissism. So I wanted to just lay that foundation before I talk about what I'm going to talk about next. We do not, we meaning psychiatry and psychology, talk about dissociation in men as much as we probably should. Because I think dissociation, or that splitting off parts of your psyche to protect yourself, can be a part of what I'm about to talk about next. So, as I alluded to earlier, I have had folks in my psychotherapy practice, women particularly, who describe having partners whose presentation and behavior and demeanor goes well beyond what might be observed as being or assessed or diagnosed as being narcissistic personality disorder, were they to seek that out. So what I'm referring to is those humans who walk among us who embody a dark entity. Now, I'm not even sure what my belief system is around this, and I've encountered it myself in a terrifying experience I had in Ireland. But these women describe traits very different than the covert, overt presentation of narcissism. They describe someone whose looks, demeanor, voice, conversation style changes. They will describe someone going dark through the eyes. I think we've all had an idea of what that looks like. Um, they can be abusive in the way we tend to understand that. They can be highly volatile and unpredictable. Their inner emotional regulation is off the charts, meaning, they go from 0 to 100 in terms of anger. If this fits your belief system, I do think there can be an aspect of shape-shifting going on. Again, I'm stepping out of the realm of typical psychology and psychiatry here. There could be a spiritual explanation for this if you wanted to introduce the word evil. I suspect it's more likely a form of dissociation, if we want to be more scientific about it. But the interesting thing about these women whom I've worked with is they have experienced so much confusion and gaslighting that they doubt what they're seeing. They don't believe what they're actually observing. And this is a very fascinating thing because these aren't scenarios where you can easily end a relationship or separate, because what comes with this type of character is a pathological, unhealthy level of obsession, entitlement, and intimidation tactics. So narcissists like to win, no doubt about it. They're not easy to go through any kind of legal separation, marital separation. It's not easy to leave them. But what I'm talking about is next level, where if you try to leave this type of character, they will set out to destroy you. They will set out to destroy your reputation. They will set out to sabotage your career. They will set out to get between you and your children. Yes, this can be in the narcissist playbook, no doubt about it. But the garden variety narcissists tend to find someone new who offers them that ego supply and they move on. So I'm trying to walk the line here between giving a more sort of mystical explanation for this with a more scientific, psychological one. You can weigh in on this any way you need to, but I do think that these characters walk among us, and it does lead us to ask the question of why. I was thinking this morning about some people whom we're all aware of who have multiple billions of dollars and why they're not using that money to help other people. And I think the answer there lies a little bit in what I'm talking about today. So I don't know if me saying that is going to get me kicked off of YouTube. It doesn't really matter. But um, the this video is really dedicated to any of you who have had this type of experience, even in the dating realm, right? Even if you've encountered these people in seeking relationship, not just being in one. So these are individuals who can be very charming, just as narcissists can be, just as sociopaths can be. But there's a darkness. You wouldn't see some of the transparent vulnerability that can be evident with a narcissist necessarily. What you will see and what will look different than narcissistic personality disorder is the shifting into something that feels much darker. I also think these are characters who can have a real fascination with dark video games, violence, the underworld, um, satanic types of ideas. These are folks who are completely in their shadow self, operating in that shadow archetype, intentionally, perhaps, or perhaps not. But what I'm referring to, again, goes a few layers darker and deeper than your typical narcissist. I'm not saying they don't have narcissistic traits. Of course they do. But it will be a little different. And it is not something that is easily sourced out when you're doing your research. And so my experience with this, again, comes from being in the therapy practice. And I've had a tiny bit of my own experience with this. And if you are, as many of you are, empathic, you will be able to feel both this person's pain as well as how dark they are. You're going to feel both. And I think you may feel more of that darkness than most people do. Um, and this type of person is, of course, going to be drawn to you because they want to feed off of your good energy. Now, this is true for all narcissists, absolutely. But I was just inspired to sit down and talk about this a little bit. And the other thing I will say is that these are characters who are at higher risk of actually harming you, your pets, or someone close to you, or harming your belongings. It goes into it goes into that territory. If this resonates with you, and or if you've been in relationship with someone like this, I would really love to hear from you. I'd really love to hear your story. This more mystical or holistic, if you will, awareness of narcissism and all its accompanying characterological, I can't say that either, character phenomenon, or why I do the work I do with both educating, empowering, and helping people reclaim what they lost in these kinds of relationships. So if that sounds like something you'd like to look into, again, just reach out. Go to www.staceysanderson.ca to find out more about the work I do. Again, if this resonates for you, please like, subscribe, get in the conversation. And I look forward to connecting with you on the next video. Thank you for being here.